All right, here we go. Parshas Vigash. Again, we're discussing the sugya of Yosef and the Shvatim. So it's just kedai to know that when we refer to the Shvatim, when we refer to the others, think about the Ushpizin and Sukkis, right? Yosef is the one that stands out, right? Yosef is Yosef HaTzadik. There's something miyuchad about Yosef, which we spoke by Arichas in Parshas Vayeshev and other weeks. But Zak the Pasuk, Vigash Elav Yehuda. Yehuda approaches him, Vayomer, and he says, Bi Adoni. You know, it's hard to translate this exactly. I would like to say something to you that you should hear. And you shouldn't get angry at me because you're similar to Parai. Zok Rashi, I would like to speak something in my master's ears. Zok Rashi, my words should enter your ears. You shouldn't get angry. He spoke to him very angrily. If you look in the Midrashim talk how fierce and how frightening the scenario was. That Yehuda was talking and there was blood spritzing out of him and his hair was standing up and the building was shaking and it was like a situation. It wasn't Stam. You realize he was talking to his brother. He had no idea, but he was talking to his brother. We're going to get to that soon. So. Because you're like Parai. I view you like a king. That's why I'm talking to you respectfully in the sense that I want you to hear I want you to listen. I want you to hear well to what I'm saying. That's the pshutai shel mikra. Midrashay saivcha lulkos alav b'tzaras k'moshel akapari alidei ziknasai sara alayla achash ikva. He says, Yehuda says to Yosef, the king, he says to him, that you're going to have an end. You're going to end off like Parai did, just like when Parai took Sarah, he got smitten with Taras. So to you also, because you held Sarah, my grandmother, and you're also going to get that. Okay, Davar Acher, another pshat. Ma Parai goes if ain't mekayim avtech v'nei oisev atikain. Just like Parai doesn't keep his word, you don't either keep your word. You'll say you said you're going to protect him. This is what you do. You lock him up. You don't keep your word. You're also not careful with that. Another pshat is that you're similar to Param. Says if you're gonna bother me, if you're gonna chap at me, I'm gonna kill you and Param, and both of you are gonna be dead. He's gonna be dead, you're gonna be dead, you both be dead. So respect. Please respect, please be respectful and don't make any problems, because if you do, you'll be dead. That's what he tells him. Pasuk goes weiter, Adoni Shal Asavad Lemar, you asked. My master asked the servant, saying, "Hey, you have a father or brother?" We answered, we said to our master, we have an old father, and a child that was born, a young child that was born in the old age of our father, and his brother, our brother, died, and all that's left of this part of the family is him, this one brother, that's this young brother that was born in the Yumei Zakunim of our father, to his mother and to his father that love him. Now he references the mother because Yosef and Binyamin were born from the same mother, but she's no longer around. There's a fascinating Emre MS that I came across many years ago, and there's a tremendous Yisrael in Avodas Hashem that he brings it out from the parish of Yosef and Yehuda. So as a klal, as just the idea of Ba'alma, you should know the Emre MS is very, very busy all over the place discussing the sugya of Yosef and Yehuda. If you remember, we spoke on Rosh Hashanah, we spoke the difference between Yosef got out of the bar on Rosh Hashanah, right? So Yosef is Rosh Hashanah, Yehuda is Keneged Yom Kippur, as a Hoidah, Vidoy. We spoke about that in Rosh Hashanah, but there's constantly throughout the whole Sefer Me'emes, this is like a theme that is running through. Yosef this, Yehuda that. Yosef this, Yehuda that. They get together. They don't get together. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. Big marachas about Yosef and Yehuda. It's difficult to read. It's a difficult sefer to read because he doesn't explain anything. He just says things, and you have to just either you're a master on culture cool so you can understand it, or you have to think a little bit and try to figure it out. So I have the lashon over here. I'm going to read through some of it, and some of it I'm going to skip over because the lashon is very difficult to understand. Anyways, he brings from a Zayar, he starts off like this. The way that Yehuda approached Yosef is the concept of being Semech Gula Tefillah. Like we end off with Yitzis Mitzrayim, Gal Yisrael, and then we start Shemon Esrei. That was the concept that was going on over here between Yosef and Yehuda. Yehuda lehoisef b'vakasha v'lechidush klum rak chazar al advarim. Yehuda didn't add anything, any requests. He wasn't mechadish anything. He was chazar al advarim. He repeated everything that he said. Ulam, and here's the aside, and he's going to go through it and explain it and say it a few times. Shum tefila eina haleches leibud hagam she'ena miskabelas b'shas ma'isa. There is no such thing as a tefillah that gets lost, even though it could be the tefillah won't get answered right now. Isa b'sefer Aschus, he writes from his great-grandfather, the Chidush Erim. Right, so the story of the Ger Chassidus is that the Chidush Erim was the first Rebbe. He had many children that died in his lifetime, and the Sfas Emes was his grandson, but and was raised by his grandfather because his father died as a younger man. I think he was in his 40s, or he was maybe 40, and the Sfas Emes was raised by his grandfather, Chidush Erim, and the Emrei Emes is the Sfas Emes' son. Sfas Emes was nifter in 1905. The Emrei Emes was nifter in 1948. So from 1905 to 1948, that's when the Emrei Emes was the Rebbe in Ger. It was a whole fascinating story how he escaped. He went to Eretz Yisrael before the war, and then he went. They smuggled him. Made it to Eretz Yisrael. He made it to Eretz Yisrael during the war. He was very, very old and frail. By the time he got to Eretz Yisrael, he was very, very shvach. But altogether, Emrei Emes is just a beautiful, beautiful sefer. There's so much in there. They have Ala Torah, they have Anmayadim, and they have Lakutim from him, and other things from him. Just a beautiful sefer. So he brings on the Sefer Aschus, which is from the Chidush Erim. He says like this: Yedaber na avdecha tova bazne Adoni. This that he says, I'm talking to you, and I want you to hear what I'm saying, is connected the pasuk that we say before we start from an Esrei. Hashem sosei tiftach v'yagiti losecha. Vayichar abcha ba'avdecha, and you shouldn't get angry at your servant. Is connected the pasuk Yehyu liratan Emrefi. So he's coming to be masber what this Chidush Erim means when he says this. So let's think a little bit about what these psukim are. The Gemara Grada has a kasha. The Gemara says, how could you say Hashem so say tiftach? You're not allowed to be mafsik ben gula l'tfila. You have to start Shemon Esrei right away, right? We don't even say Amen to Gal Yisrael. We just start Shemon Esrei right away. So how could it be that we say Hashem so say tiftach? So came the Tkinu Rabbanon. It's part of the Takanas HaTfilah, so we say it like that. The Ramban explains that it doesn't mean that Hashem should open up our lips. The Ramban explains like it's a lashon of Svas HaNohar. Hashem Svasai Tiftach. Right? When you dig by a river, Lamashal, let's say you dig by a river, and the water just swells forward. So that's what we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that our tefillas should just come forth from within ourselves. As Zay Dr. Ramban. And he focuses very stark on the next nakuda. Val yichar abcha b'avdecha. Don't get angry at your servant. That's the pasuk of Yehyu liratan Emrefi. Because a person could fadimian himself and think that it's possible that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to hear my tefillah. I did kach v'kach, Hashem doesn't want to hear my tefillah. Or who am I that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should listen to my tefillah? So the Emrei Emes is coming to teach you and to explain to us how it's a very wrong way of thinking about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu views us and our tefillahs. V'hem ha-beis psukim shetiknu chazal tefillah. There's two psukim that we say in Shemon Esrei. We start off Hashem Sosei Tiftach, and we end off with Yehyu liratan Emrefi v'egin libi l'fanecha. So he brings the Gemara. The Gemara Bracha says that Michli Yehyu liratan Emrefi mashma l'b'seif mashma yikara. Sounds like we should say it maybe before Shemon Esrei, maybe we should say it after Shemon Esrei. So my time is teknu rabban l'achar Shemon Esrei. What's pshat chazal or masakan to say this pasuk of Yehyu liratan Emrefi after Shemon Esrei, l'achar Shemon Esrei brachas? Hoil v'loi Amri David ela l'achar yudches parshias achar Yehyu liratan ksiv yancha Hashem b'yem tzara. The reason why I would think I should say it beforehand, meaning the reason why I would think to say it beforehand, is because it says Yehyu liratan and then it says yancha Hashem b'yem tzara. It's after, but the reason why we say it after is because it's after 18 kapitel of Tilim, that where David HaMelech said it, right? Kapitel Chaf is Yanach Hashem B'Yem Tzara, and Kapitel Yotes ends off with Yehyu liratan Emrefi v'egin libi l'fanecha, or maybe it's Yud Ches. Well, let's check. We have a Tilim right here. We'll check exactly. No, Kapitel Yotes ends off. Right? Ends off Yehyu liratan Emrefi v'egin libi l'fanecha Hashem shirv'gei. The next pasuk is Parak Chaf is Lam Natzech Mizmor David Yanach Hashem B'Yem Tzara. So this that we're davening Yehyu liratan the thing that follows afterwards is that Hashem should answer us v'yem tzara. So you leratzon, that our tefillah should be leratzon. So when we finish davening, we say this pasuk, we say this little tefillah that Hashem should accept our tefillahs. So how you leratzon mefi mashma l'sef mashma ekor. So my time to knur rabban lachshman esher brachas hav le'amr david ala achi yuchas parshas achi you leratzon ksiv yanch Hashem yem tzara. And this is the pirish of Yehyu leratzon. Hainu shapam Yehyu leratzon aval pisha atlan eskabla. He said there is no such thing as a tefillah that doesn't get answered. It could be right now Hashem is not going to answer the tefillah. Shum tefillah le'nevedas yesh tefillah shenenes la'ayin shana. It could be that the tefillah is going to be answered in 70 years. There is no such thing, he says, as a tefillah that gets lost. And that's what it means. Yehyu leratzon. Svet zayin leratzon. There will come a time when this tefillah will be leratzon. Yesh tefillah shemayla kol minei tefillas. Could be that this tefillah mitzad itself isn't getting answered, but the power that this tefillah had was to knock a whole bunch of tefillahs up. Right? We spoke about this once before, I think, that there's a certain makom in Shemaim where the tefillahs are gathered, and then you just need like another tefillah. Maybe it needs to come mekalev a little better, a little more kavana, or a little more something, or it's coming from more of a tzabrachin kite, right? But that tefillah is going to knock all the tefillahs into place. So it could be it's my little tefillah right here, right now, but it's being ma'orer tefillahs that my Zaydik could have davened. It's being ma'orer tefillahs that were davened 200 years ago. Who knows what? We're still, v'zaycha chas le'ovos maybe goyim and evenehem. What's that all about? Right? And that's what he's going to be masber now. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers the chas le'ovos. It was so many generations later. Right? There's a vort. They say that the Gemara says about Metzia and Daf Pehei, that Kol Mishu Talmud Chacham, Ubenoi Talmud Chacham, Uben Benoi Talmud Chacham, Shuvein Torah Posekes Mizara. Yeah? Right? Because the Pasuk says, Le'emusha mipicha, mipizaracha, pizara zaracha, Omer Hashem me'atov yaredu. Yeah? So the Welt fragt Kasha. We're all Bnei Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. But not everybody's a Talmud Chacham. Shuvein Torah Posekes Mizara Lo'ilam. What does that mean? How could it be that you could say that the Torah there's never a hefsek in Torah, right? But the pshat is that the Torah is machzeres halachsan yishallah. The Torah goes back to where it finds itself comfortable. The Torah is willing to be by you if you're Bnei Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov. The question is if you're going to let the person into the achsan, if you're going to let the person into the door. If you let the person into the door, it says fine. So then you'll have it. But when the Torah is munachas b'karen zavis, and anybody who wants to come and take it can come and take it. It's there, it's available for you. Right? That's the idea. And it goes on to say that the Gemara says that tefillas avos tiknum, the tefillas were created, they were mesaken al yedei avos. That means that every single yid, meaning we refer to them as our fathers. If they are our fathers, that means we are their children. They created this concept of tefillah. That means that we have a shaykhs to that concept of tefillah. You'll say, "Vu benich, who am I? What am I? I did so many bad things in my life. Maybe my tefillah shouldn't work." But he brings a medrash. The medrash says, "My mamukim eitzav levish." That it's the eitzav levish, the eitz on a person's heart is like deep waters. What does that mean? So he says you have a well in the ground, a bee well that's very very deep in the ground, right? And you're trying to get water from it, but you stick in the bucket, you can't get anything. You attach it to a string, and then you attach a string to a rope, and then you attach the rope to another thing, and then you lower it all the way down, then you can get the water from there. So he says that we're like that water that's all the way on the bottom. We didn't have shaykhs to it, right? But if we use the ropes, if we use the proper tools, we could get to that madrega, because we could say like, who am I? What shaykhs do I have? But Mishtein Chazal, Talmud Ve'Eliyahu, that says that chayiv kol echad ve'echad Yisrael, every single yid is mechuyev to say Moshe Yagiu Maseh L'Maseh V'Yisrael Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. The Shvatim, they were the children of Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov, so they saw the Avos. So they were living with Avos. So they knew about it. We're so many generations later. We're so distant from Kedusha. How could we say that we have a shaykhs to this? But the pshat is that we have to be doila from the Be'er Ma'am Amukim. We have to go all the way deep down to be able to be zoichet to this water. And he says a fascinating thing. He goes on to explain that the first three brachas in Shemoneh Esrei are connected to Avos. First bracha, Magen Avram. Second bracha, Tchias HaMesim Yitzchak. We spoke about that. And Ad HaKadosh is Yaakov, Kedeshenu, Kedesh Yaakov. Yaakov is the Midah Kedusha, that's being Milo, the Gashmis, the Ruchnias. And then he says that the next 12 brachas, Shemon Esrei, are connected to 12 Shvatim, right? You have 3, 3 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and 12 in the middle. 12 and 6 is 18, right? You don't really have 12, it's really 13, so maybe that's Menashe and Ephraim, I don't know. I remember seeing a sefer once, I was looking for it tonight, I couldn't find it, that went through each bracha, how it corresponds to that Shevet. But he brings a fascinating thing. He says that the Sfas Emes learns that the bracha of Shema Keleinu is connected Yehuda. Why? Because what Shema Keleinu? Shema Keleinu is that Hashem should answer our tefillos. We're not being meisef anything. We're not asking for anything specific, right? Yehuda was saying, he was just repeating and reiterating what he previously told Yosef. There's nothing new, right? So that's Shema Keleinu. There's nothing new here, right? But that's the one. Who's the one that got Binyamin out of trouble? That was through Yehuda. So that's what the bracha of Shema Keleinu is. That's why we should put our focus on Shema Keleinu. He goes right there and he brings from the Kedushas Levi that says Bi Adoni. What does it mean Bi Adoni? It's within us, the master. That's how he wants to touch it. Hainu sheyesh bi adnus umemshala. A yid has a koyach of adnus and power, and memshala kinin the isa tzadik moshel yirazelikim mi moshel bi tzadik. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that a tzadik is able to be moshel, is able to rule over HaKadosh Baruch Hu's gzera. Mi moshel bi tzadik. Shani goyzer gzera mevatla. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goyzer gzera, and the tzadik can come and be mevatla, right? And he brings that the Svarim say, Bi Adoni, Bi, meaning within us, we have the Shem Havaya within us, and we have a koyach that we're able, because we have this Bi Adoni within us, so then we're able to be mispal, we're able to have a connection, and Shachas HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bi is 12. So Bi Adoni, all the 12 Shvatim together, we have a Shachas to be able to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this way. And that's the bakashas of Shemon Esrei are all connected to Shvatim for this way. It states in Medrash, if a person davens and he sees that his tefillah wasn't answered, he should daven again. He should daven again, right? That's what Yehuda was doing. That's the bracha Shema Keleinu. That's the whole idea over here. It's not just, I davened already, fine, Yitzig event. There's no such thing as davening Yitzig event. The point of davening is that I'm not finished davening until I get what I need. Again, the tefillah, the answer may be no, or the answer may be not right now, but eventually the tefillah. The question is, klape shemayim, I have no idea what's happening to my tefillah, right? But my tefillah is there. Your tefillah is there. Everyone's tefillah is there. It goes up. There's no such thing as a tefillah that doesn't go up. There's a famous lashon of the Zohar that says that any avodas Hashem that's not betchilu rechimu with av and yira leparchas le'ela, it doesn't go up, it doesn't fly up. So there was a Rebbe that maybe it was Baal Shem Tov, I don't remember exactly, came to a shul and he said he feels like the shul has so much av and yira in it. He said why? He said because people not davening properly, the tefillos aren't being oila, they're sticking around in the shul. They have to have you have to give it the wings to be able to move it upstairs a little bit. And he says that that's the pshat. The shum tefillah le'nevedas, no tefillah gets lost. Afilu tefillah shuraim she'ena pe'elas. Even if we see, let's say davening for a chayla, you're davening for a chayla, and the person dies. What's the time to the tefillahs? Huh? Reb Chaim Kiruvitz told us a Maisa that he had some kind of operation when he was bacher. He went to Rishiva. Rav Hutner should daven for him. Could say he took him a couple of days, recuperated his back in yeshiva. A couple of weeks later, Rav Hutner called him over and says, "What happened?" So what do you mean what happened? He said, "When you got better, why didn't you tell me?" He said, "I was saying till in the last 3 weeks for you. What happened? A report back that you did good, right?" So yeah. So he brings another medrash that says that there was a mashal manormal adoni bekesef rishon manadaber bekesef sheni. He says it was kilo that like Yehuda was trying to give him money to try to convince him to listen to him. He wasn't interested, so he gives him money. He says maybe $10, nah, $20, nah, $30. How much money do you have to give him in order for him to pay attention to him, to listen to him, right? What's going on, right? He says that even though it's like he hit him in his face, and he threw the money back at him, he says there were so many reasons why Yehuda could have said, you know what, I did my part, I did me, he's doing him, but Binyamin's not here, right? he could have said, "This is the circumstances. I didn't realize how severe it would be," and he would give up. Right? He threw the money back at him. Right? He says, "Afal Pikain." He says, "Afal Pikain." He says, "Afal Pikain Vigash Elav Yehuda." Yehuda stepped forward. He stepped up to the plate. Afal Pikain, that there were so many things going against him, he stepped up to the plate anyways. Lo Eved Hashem Nidma Shazarka Le Maisa Bachazara. There's so many times when a person is Eved Hashem and it looks as if they're throwing your maisim back at you. V'tzarchu lechazek es hatzmai. And a person needs to very strongly be mechazik himself. V'chol ish Yisrael yesh nekuda pnimis behester amuk amuk. Ukshamekablam ol malchus shamayim moitim oitza nekuda lachutz. He says within every single yid, doesn't matter how connected he is, but there could be that pintel yid somewhere, weit far away, deep down somewhere. But then he's mekabel al malchus shamayim, and that nekuda, that little spark grows into a tremendously large flame. And that's what he says, Vigash Elav. What does it mean, Vigash Elav Zaktis Vasemes? He approached himself. What do you mean he approached himself? He approached himself because he says, I got to step up to the plate. I got to do this. I got to do my ishtadlos. I got to talk to Hashem about this. And he brings a lashon that even if a person has machshav zaros when he's davening, even if a person just bubbles up the words, afal pikein in avedas, the tefillah still never gets lost. Uked isa. And steht in Chazal, "V'les ru'usa tavadi is avid." There's no such thing as a good thought or a good will that gets lost. Kol shekain shenefesh miYisrael ein avedas. Kol shekain, a nefesh miYisrael doesn't get lost. I just want to be made to something very interesting that I came across a couple of days ago. The pasuk in Yeshaya says, "V'ro kvasim." It's talking about how the people weren't listening to the Navi. So the going over there says, the Chazal say on this pasuk, "Asidin Yisrael lahachyes mesim," that the Klal Yisrael is going to be mechayim mesim. The chsiv kan v'ro kvasim says over here in Yeshaya v'ro kvasim, and v'ro kvasim literally means they were the shepherds of the sheep and they took them out to the pasture. But for somehow the Chazal understand that this v'ro kvasim means a raya to tchias hamesim. Uksiv Yiru Bashan Megillah, and it says that Bashan, the pasuk that talks about Tchias HaMesim, says Bashan and Gilad. Bashan is Elisha, right, who did Tchias HaMesim, and Gilad is Eliyahu HaGiladi, who did Tchias HaMesim. I'm just going to read you a lashon of the Gra, and I'm going to tell to what we said. V'inyan Yud Beis Madregas Shechash Rav Pinchas ben Yair. The 12 Madregas that Rav Pinchas ben Yair spoke about, right? Torah mevili des Zehiros mevili des Rizos, v'chulu, Rizos Nakios, right? Prishos, Kedusha, Tara, Chesida, whatever, that whole thing, that whole Gemara. What's the highest Madrega? Tchias HaMesim. These 12, or the way the going is going to explain it, these 11 steps bring about Tchias HaMesim. So what are we talking about over here? V'inyan Yud Beis Madrega Shachach Rav Pinchas ben Yair Torah mevili des Zehiros v'achrayna shemevili des Tchias HaMesim shebal de'el Yozach Alatay v'Amru. Shema Timer Kalabal Likvitz Kaifetz. Maybe you think you could jump from one Madrega to the next, but it's a loymar she'i efshar lahalas l'maylas Tchias HaMesim ela ali de'yud alav dargan hanal. That it's only possible to get up to Tchias HaMesim when you go from one step to the next through these 11 steps. Ukshakash Baruch Hu Raya Es Yisrael leYachzal Hem Gam Yud Alav Madregas Hanal. Eventually, it's going to come to the point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be Raya Es Yisrael. He brings a pasuk that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be Raya Es Yisrael. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be Ki'ilu, the shepherd, that's going to be leading the sheep, and that's going to be when everything is going to be perfectly in place. And he brings it, he says, the pasuk says, Hashem Raya Lo Yachzar. When Hashem is the Raya, Lo Yachzar, not going to be anything missing. And the Goyen says that there are 11 other things that are mentioned in the following psukim. Those 11 things correspond to these rest of the 11 Madregas that we're talking about here. V'zehu shenamar Hashem roi lo yachzar. And we have all the Yud Beis Madregas over here. Lasted love eksiv ani era eschem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that He's going to be the one that's going to take us. So Nava Madrega Yud Beis Shabal De'el Yozach Alatayv. And that's what the Goyen says. What's going on over here? What's the pshat over here? So we could explain like this. We explained before that the 12 middle brachos and Shemon Esrei connect the 12 shvatim, and the bracha Shema Kileinu is connected the bracha of Yehuda, like you saw in the Ramas. Now, Medalmod is that there are 18 vertebrae in the back, in the spine, right? And the Gemara says that when a person bows down by davening, he should make sure that he bends all one, right? And there's all these Gemaras that if a person doesn't, his spine turns into a nachash. Basically, the point is that every tefillah, this is what we, when I remember, thinking about in high school that, each tefillah that we daven, each time another chulya from our back, goes down to davening, we're machniya HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So then, we're being machniya another chelik in the nachash, right? That's always how we thought about it. But the pshat is, we're saying a whole new amkas over here. It's not just the pshat that we're getting rid of the nachash, but we're building up the matzav of Knesset Yisrael. It's Yud Aleph, meaning, what's the Yud Beis Madregas over here? Yeah? Very fascinating thing. The Asaru Ge Malchus, this is really a shmuz for a different time, but the Asaru Ge Malchus were 10 Tanoim that were killed because of the 10, connected the 10 Shvatim. Right? And Rebbe Kiva was killed, right? And what does the Gemara say? When Rebbe Kiva was killed, he said, Shema Yisrael Hashem L'kein Hashem Echad, right? In the Yomai, he was never able to be Mekayim this mitzvah. Now he's able to be Mekayim this mitzvah. What's he talking about? What does he mean? Right? So Shteit and Chazal, that the Shvatim were Matzar HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the minyan to sell Yosef. Rebbe Kiva was the one that darshan that Hashem L'kecha Tir L'Rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. So Shteit that there was a taina on Rebbe Kiva that how could he equate the Kavod HaAdam to Kvei Shal Makom? So that's where Rebbe Kiva was Nanash. But who does Rebbe Kiva correspond to in the 10 Shvatim? Not to the Shvatim, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? That's why he says Hashem Echad. Because that's referring to the complete achdus of everything. Right? That's why Rebbe Kiva is Yom Kippur. Right? That's why we spoke. We mentioned this. Right? So, it's not just that we have, that 11, and then, now we have Yosef, so now we're 12. No. What we have over here is, that the tikkun that's happening here is that we're having the 12 Shvatim all together. This is the shleimus of Knesset Yisrael. With, obviously, Yaakov Avinu on top, which is Echad, which is Aleph, is the Aleph of Echad is Keneged Yaakov, and the Ches and the Dal, that's the 12 Shvatim, Yosef reuniting with his brothers. The Bavusta Medrash in this week's parasha, everybody knows that it says that when Yosef was Megal, what's this whole mice of Yosef? What's the whole story over here? What's the oimik over here? But the pshat is that Yosef is saying, Ani Yosef, ich bin da. Right? The Medrash says, Oy lanu mi, Abba Kohen Bardel, a famous Medrash. Right? Oy lanu mi yem adin, oy lanu mi yem techecha. What's going to happen? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say, Ani Hashem. You're like, where have you been? Ani Hashem, right? That's the whole emek of what we're talking about over here in Tefillah. Because if a person works on his Tefillah, that he's talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Vigash Elav, right? We said this last time as Elav. And the way he's talking to him, second person, third person, first, well, what's that whole business, right? Sometimes a person feels like, I can't talk directly to Hashem. He's like back and forth, like he's not really sure, like he's uncomfortable talking to Hashem, right? Eventually, ultimately, it says, the pasuk says, that the Gemara says in Tainus that also the HaKadosh Baruch Hu lasas machal tzaddikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make a big circle full of tzaddikim, right? Right? And he says Zeh Hashem kivinu loi. First of all, Zeh is Gematria 12, and kivinu loi. We said the Medrash that if a person davens and didn't get answered, kivinu loi. Kaver Hashem, daven again. So this is the Hashem that we've been talking about the whole time. If a person spends his entire life and his avodas Hashem is focused on trying to recognize the HaKadosh Baruch Hu this way, then when he comes to that matzav, he's going to recognize the HaKadosh Baruch Hu like somebody he's familiar with. How do I know this? Shteit in Chazal. When Klal was crossing the Yamsuf, they said Zek Keli Van Veyu. And it says they pointed with the finger, we recognize Zek Keli Van Veyu, we recognize him. We recognize him from Echet Teisah. I saw him in a book, where do you know him from? Right? Pshat is a state that when the Mitzrayim were throwing the babies into the water, or when they were burying the babies in the ground, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Megal himself to them. See, they were familiar with him like that, right? So, when there's going to be this gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're going to be able, the tzaddikim are going to be able to point and say, this is what we were talking about the whole time. This is this is what I meant. This is Alamal what I was talking about. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, right? So that's Zeh Hashem Kivinu Lei, Negila V'Nisvach HaBishuasai. And with that, Negila V'Nisvach HaBishuasai will, that's the issue for Gans Klal Yisrael. That's the issue of Tchias HaMesim. And that's why it says V'Tachir Ruach Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu didn't have the Shechina calls man. Yosef wasn't there. Now Yosef is here. The Shechina is back. The Shechina comes back. That's Spitz Tchias HaMesim, right? The Shvatim are together. That's Spitz Tchias HaMesim. They were terrified. It could be that there's even a lashon in the Medrash that it was like Pocha and Shmosam when they heard it and they had Tchias HaMesim B'Shas Ma'isa. But there's definitely a shaykhis that Tchias HaMesim when this concept of Tchi Nefesh Ruach Yaakov. Yeah. All right, we'll stop here. Let's put 9:15 on the dot.